There were stories coming out yesterday that Dana White is kind of thinking on if he wants to cancel the Conor McGregor fight coming up against Guthrie, right? Gagey. Or is he going to, push the fight forward? Now, he has come out and said about Ferguson Khabib that he wants the fight to happen. If that fight happens, then he obviously is going to push forward with the Conor McGregor fight. Conor McGregor is UFC 252 , right?
Yes, in July.
So the fight should happen. The fight should happen. It should happen because I don't think this Corona will be going past the month of June. But if it does, there will be, speculations that they might cancel the fight. Now, my opinion on promoting and really how they choose these fights, and it's been a problem in my eyes in amateur fights, in boxing, in MMA, the UFC, and Bellator. We've seen this over and over again. And my problem here with the way these fights are pretty much brought together, I don't understand. And I understand like you want to sell the best product out there. You want to put the best fighter against the best fighter, or the big fan favorite against the better fighter. And that's what you want to do. You want to make it a draw. That's what you want to do. Right. What bothers me about these promoters, and I'm going to take shots at every single promoter. I'm talking about the amateur divisions. I'm talking about the professional divisions. What bothers me more than anything is the way they promote it and the way they push forward these fights, when to me, some of these fights make no sense, and some of these fighters have no chance in the fight. And they still promote it and they still push it because they think it will be a selling standpoint for the product, and that maybe that fighter will bring more fannies in the seats, and the better fighter is just going to whip his ass.
Right. But here's the thing. Now, when you're talking about some of these mismatches, obviously this is directed more towards amateurs. Mm-hmm. Because when you have a UFC fight, you don't have to worry about the fighters directly selling tickets. You don't have to worry about McGregor saying, "Oh, I just sold 50 tickets and I get my money off of that," or whatever. Amateurs obviously are the ones that, for the best, sell tickets.
I understand that. Yes,
that's why, unfortunately, with some of these
promoters,
lopsided matchups from promoters, it happens.
And we're not going to mention any names.
No, we're not going to name.
I think people know who we're talking about.
If anybody watches some of the fights, they know it happens. Because why? You're going to have somebody from a very prominent camp sell tickets. Why? Because you've got a big following and such, whatever it is. And that's how these amateur promoters make their money. No different than professional promoters. But at the same time, you're not going to be able to, and you don't televise. There are some fights that you know damn well that fighter should not be in that ring. But you see, how do you get some of these? And does it look like we're picking on the amateur ranks? Well, it's easy to do that because that's where you see an 0-14 fighter, and he's still fighting. Who's he fighting? Somebody who's 5-0, 5-2, 5-3, and you know damn well these guys aren't going to make it out of the first round. I could say it. Now, it's, if somebody wants to say, I'm never going to be called a liar when it comes to this. Even as a judge, there's times where you're sitting there and you're just saying, you know damn well what's going to happen. But maybe that guy, he may suck, but he's got a big family and he sells a lot of tickets and he's going to be on that show. He's going to be on the next show, barring any type of suspension, and it's going to happen. But here's the thing. Not only, you can't really blame the promoter because it's a business. People can say, "Oh, I do."
So it makes it all right that you can do that because it's a business?
Listen, the promoter's there to make money, right? That's it. He's there to make money. So if somebody wants to stop that from happening, you got to go to the coach. Because that coach knows his fighter who's 0-14, who's lost in the first round of last 13 fights, he knows he's not going to. Come on, man. We've seen it. We've been at the shows. And
I'm going to mention a fight. Ryan Castro, and we were talking about this off air. Ryan Castro is a good friend of mine. You know Ryan very, very well. He fights out of No Limits.
No Limits.
No Limits, MMA.
Pro fighter.
Yeah, pro fighter. What hurts me to say is his first Bellator fight, he fought at the Nassau Coliseum, if you remember.
Yes.
He cut a significant amount of weight. I think he cut all the way to 155, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
I think it was 155 that he fought in. He fought a guy that he had no business in the ring with. No business. Now, I'm not saying that Ryan didn't have a chance in the fight, because in any given day, a fighter can land a punch, land a kick, but he already had a disadvantage going into the fight. He fought a guy, to me, that was a better fighter at that particular weight. And the way this was brought together was at practically the last minute. It was brought together at the last minute, and I know Ryan. Ryan's a confident guy, and I love Ryan, and I'm not taking shots at Ryan. This isn't Ryan's fault.
No.
It's not Ryan's fault.
I will say this, that fight was on Bellator.
Yes, it was on Bellator at Nassau Coliseum.
I will say this, and I have no problem saying this, and I don't care if people want to get pissed off, because it happens, and we all know it. When it comes to Bellator, and they play with that undercard, if you're in the hometown, they're going to look for the ticket sales, number one, okay, no matter who they exploit. Mm-hmm. Perfect example, okay, real tough girl, Anastasia Bruce. Mm-hmm. All right?
Yep.
They were going to put her up against Valerie Letourneau out of American Top Team.
Yep.
Right?
I remember that, yep.
What happened? Got slammed. Mm-hmm. Now, the promoter, okay, because we want to think that the promoters are knowledgeable of these matchups and everything. What happened? They wanted it to go. They wanted it to go and all that stuff. The commission came and said, hell no, it ain't going to happen. Right? Now, you want to talk about it. This is Anastasia, local girl, you know what I mean? Tough girl. Tough girl. Valerie Letourneau, she comes out of American Top Team. Who's she trained with?
Nobody.
Who?
Nobody.
Valerie Letourneau?
I don't know. You're
leading up to that.
I don't know.
Leading up to that,
I don't know who she trains with.
You saw her training with Amanda Nunez, for crying out loud.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They were basically setting that girl up. They were setting the girl up. But here's the thing: sometimes it's that passion of the fighter. It's like, I'm not going to step away from anything. I'm not going to turn anything down. I'll fight anybody, anywhere. And plus, here's the real upsetting thing: you know that the girl has limited experience as a pro, but you flash that Bellator, you're going to be on TV and
UFC,
UFC and all that stuff.
Dana White's going to hold the belt and give it to me if I win.
There's nothing, and quite frankly, there's nothing wrong with these fighters spending time in lower local promotions, getting pro experience before they get thrown in there.
But I am going to take a shot at some of the promoters here in the amateur divisions, because I don't think they do right to some of the fighters. They don't. There are promoters out there, and I'm not going to mention any names because, I'm not here to attack any of the promoters out here. I respect every single promoter in every single promotional organization. I respect everybody. But there are fighters, and there are coaches, and there are promoters that are doing wrong to the fighters. The fighters will fight anybody. Oh, could you fight somebody that's 10 pounds overweight? They don't make the weight, but they still it's up to the other fighter if they want to fight him or they don't want to fight him. And because of the particular fights, there's only a certain amount of fights on the card, and they want to sell that card because the tickets are already sold. You're coming to the weigh-ins. You don't make weight, and then you go to the other fighter and you say, "I worked my ass off to get to that weight." And this girl or this guy is 10 pounds overweight. And then these fighters are saying, you know what I'll do? I'll go run outside for a couple of miles. I'll come back and I'll weigh myself. You're not losing 10 pounds in an hour or 2 hours. You're not. You could sit in a sauna for half a day. You're still not going to lose 10 pounds.
I mean, and when it comes to, there's a lot of issues when it comes to weight cutting. Everybody talks about it and all that. You know what I mean? Weight cutting in general is kind of comical when you look at it, because you'll see a guy who is 220 pounds, he cuts all the way down to 205, to get on a scale the day before the fight, to go against another guy who's 205. But meanwhile, after that, the next day, they're both almost 220 pounds. Is it a really light heavyweight fight?
No, it's not. But I understand that, but you're making weight the day before, 24 hours before the fight.
But you're not fighting at that weight.
But it's not fair to the promoter. It's not fair to the other fighter and the other coach that they work their asses off, and then the promoter comes to the other fighter and says, listen, He didn't make weight. He's he went outside. He ran a couple of miles. He's 7 pounds overweight. Do you want to fight him? And you're practically throwing it to the other coach. And a coach is sitting there saying, do you want to fight? It puts the coach in a bad predicament. He's putting his fighter in a situation where he's got to make the choice. He's got to make the choice to get if his fighter wants to get into the ring with the other fighter.
And quite frankly,
it's obnoxious. It really is.
And you know what it is? It's kind of sad because it does happen that way. It's realistic, whether it's a pro or amateur. You see it more in the amateur division.
You see it
because
a lot.
The opportunities to fight
won't
now,
happen in the pros.
Because the opportunities to fight in amateur ranks are so much more limited because everybody wants to fight, and there's a limited amount of spots and limited amount of matchups, and that's just the way it is. But when it's all said and done, now, like you said, when it comes to promoter is it's a business for him. You know what I mean? 9 times out of 10, it's up to that coach to protect his fighter, whether he's going to put him up against an animal who he knows is going to punch a hole through his chest or not. 9 times out of 10, he doesn't want to let the fighter down, doesn't want to disappoint him, doesn't want to have any type of problem with his fighter because, God forbid, the fighter could say, the hell with you, I'm walking now. You know? Mm-hmm. And it happens. But and I feel bad because now with all these fights coming up, being switched around, pushed back, pushed away, months down the road and everything, you hope that some of these matchups that are being postponed and rescheduled, hopefully that they will happen in the future. Because you got guys, you see them on Facebook, you see them on YouTube and all that, working out in their backyard, busting their ass, trying to stay ready and stay sharp. And then what happens? Down the road, May, June comes after all of this pandemic problems and all that. I'm not saying the word. I'm not saying that word. I'm not saying the C word. I'm not saying
Corona?
I'm not saying it. So
with a lime.
Later
Corona
on down
with
the
a
road,
lime.
Perfect example. Tonight was supposed to be Lou Negula's fight. He's pushing it all the way to May. Now, are
Do
all
you
these
blame
matchups?
him?
No, you can't. But here's the thing: are all these matchups going to happen in May exactly as they were going to be today?
Are those guys going to make weight?
Are they going to make? But here's the thing: are they going to make weight? How do you know they didn't get sick? Or is another opportunity? They're amateurs. Is another opportunity going to come that's better somewhere else? Or is somebody going to get cold feet? Unfortunately, I feel bad for those guys that are going to be ready because this is some of that fear that's in their head, because they do get shunned a lot of times and people do pull out of these fights and when they're all ready to go. But, unfortunately, we don't have time to go into all the semantics of all the problems with amateur fighting and all the problems with wannabe coaches in the amateur ranks because damn, we need another 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 hours. That could be a trilogy or a series.
My trilogy here is just, it really is. And I wanted to get into this because it bothers me.
Damn you, Jeff.
And it irks me.
Jeff's fault.
No, it's not. It's not even Jeff's fault. It irks me when I go to these fights. And I go to all different fights. I go to New York City fights. I go to the Bronx. I go to Queens. I go to all the different fights. And I thank all the promoters for inviting me. Shout out to all the promoters because I have nothing against the promotion of what they do. They're great. They're great at what they do. But what bothers me more than anything is when I go to the weigh-ins, it's very rarely, and I go to the weigh-ins and I find out that these fighters are training for 3 months and all of them, every single one of them are training as hard as can be, but these girls and the trainer makes that excuse that the girl is 10 pounds overweight or 7 pounds overweight when you were supposed to go to the weigh-ins making weight. You were supposed to make weight. And then you put the other coach and the other fighter behind, really backs against the wall.
You make them the bad guy is what you do.
Yes.
Because if you say no and the fight's off, it's because you said it.
And you're gonna get the blame.
So now you look like the bad guy, and that's the bad thing about it. But you want to know something? Unfortunately, some of these guys are going to have to say no to get this stuff ironed out and, basically straightened out because it's not going to change. You just keep enabling.
It doesn't bother you. It doesn't irk you when you work your ass off, and then you tell them that I don't want to fight somebody that's 10 pounds overweight.